Alright, so I'm not really sure what happened there, but my video stopped recording, so we're going to pick up right where we left off at the beginning of this problem, finding the 15th term of the geometric sequence whose first term is 20 and whose common ratio is 1.05. To do this, having a formula for AN is going to be very important, and essentially the formula for a geometric sequence is always first term times the common ratio raised to the n minus 1 every single time. So just plug it into the formula. If I want the 15th term, then it's A15 is equal to 20 times 1.05 raised to the 15th. This goes into a calculator. If you plug it into a calculator correctly, then you would get 39.599, approximately 39.599. I trust you can put that into a calculator without any problems. Okay, so now we will find the formula for the nth term of a geometric sequence. What is the ninth term of the sequence? So to do that, now all I've done is give you the first three terms. Even with three terms, the fact that we know it's geometric tells us that there has to be a common ratio. And the idea is, well, we know the first term. The first term is 5. And we also know the common ratio. It's multiply by 3 every single time. Multiply by 3, multiply by 3, which means we have a formula without too much difficulty. First term is 5. Common ratio is 3. The common ratio raised to the n minus 1 every single time, which means now it's just plug in A9 is equal to 5 times 3 to the 9 minus 1, which is 8. Again, I trust that you can put this into a calculator on your own. 32,805 turns out to be the answer, but you should double check and make sure that you can correctly put that into a calculator. Alright, so here's where it gets a little tricky. The fourth term of a geometric sequence is 125. The 10th term is 125 over 64. What is the 14th term? Alright, so they're starting to get a little tricky with us here. Alright, so they've told us the fourth term is equal to 125. The 10th term is equal to 125 over 64. Well, so this 125 was eventually multiplied by the common ratio 6 times, right? Because from 4th to 10th, it got multiplied by the common ratio 6 times in the middle and eventually ended up here. So what we now have is, I actually have an equation. 125 is the fourth term. If I multiply it by the common ratio 6 times, that's r times r times r times r times r times r, then I would end up at the 10th term, which is 125 over 64. So I actually now have a mathematical equation I could now solve for r, and by doing that I divide 125 to both sides. When I divide 125 to both sides, those 125s cancel, and I'm left with r to the 6th equals 1 over 64. I could take the 6th root of both sides. Now, you could always plug this into a calculator. It will tell you the exact answer is 1/2. You now know that the common ratio is 1/2. If you take 125 and multiply it by 1/2 6 times, you would end up right here at 125 over 64. What I'm more concerned with is, what's the 14th term? Well, if I know this is the 10th, right? A10 is 125 over 64. Then all I have to do is multiply it by 1/2. That would be the 11th. That would be the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th. To get to the 14th term, I would just need to do that calculation. I wouldn't even need the formula, although it would be a little bit of work. I could go back and create one, but this is actually the easier method. So that turns out to be 120. So A14 would be 125. If you multiply that bottom, it comes up to 1,024. All right, so we're going to pick up here tomorrow. When I see you next time, we are going to work on what a finite geometric sequence is. You can start copying the notes. We will pick up from here. Only a couple slides left.